welcome everybody. As I said before, my name is Keegan. I'm going to be your docent today. A docent is someone who's going to be talking to you for the next 75 minutes, and we're going to become really good friends. Trust me, you go, but no, trust me, I like to open up with people. We're going to become really good friends. You're going to know about my personal life. So there's more than enough for everyone here on board. And if you do have a child and you're worried about them not being able to fit in the life jacket, we do have child-sized life jackets to accommodate your needs. Go with me. As it keeps going closer and closer to the earth, it gets smaller and smaller. And sometimes they even break apart, and even as it gets closer and closer to the earth, it turns into a little pebble rock almost, that kind of size. If you want to back up my claim, you can actually go to the Adler Planetarium, and they have some of these meteors that came down to Earth, and they're very, very, very tiny. You can hold it in your hand. Carson's definitely White City. It was a mass success. A ton of things were shown, and the architecture at the time was what was the main focus of it. There's a man named Daniel Burnham, who was a student of Lewis Sullivan, and he wanted to show what a city could and should be like from here on out. And it started off, we did not have any huge kind of fairs like that again. We did have a couple things happen. A lot of things have happened in Chicago. For example, we held the NFL draft recently this summer. If anyone here is into American football, that's a pretty cool thing. We also had Grateful Dead. 1 second off, it's okay. So that buzzer, like I told, which emulates my favorite, our hometown team, which I think was pretty interesting. First thing we'll talk about over here, some cool boat lingo for everyone here, so everyone is on the same page. Anytime I say starboard, I'm mentioning the right side. Anytime I say port, I'm mentioning two reasons. One, to redirect high winds, and also to give residents in the building privacy. Now, Daniel Burnham, after the World's Going Main exhibition, he wanted that land, where the building sits right now, to be open to the public with the plan he made, with the 1909 plan of Chicago. However, Shipper and Heinrich already went away and made the building on that land. Some theories how they were able to get around there. Some theories include that there are pillars at the bottom that hold up the foundation, so technically it's not touching it. Or there's a parking lot underneath it, and that's what holds it up. However, the building sits there either way, and they were able to get away with it. But in 1973, we went back to that plan from 1909 and revisited it, so nothing like that could happen again. Over here on your port side, these classic looking buildings you see in this general area, these are very pretty. This is called Lake Point East. Before all these very beautiful glassy buildings were here, it was actually home to the Illinois Central Railroad, and then at one point it was even home to a 9-hole golf course. But after spending $4 billion to create this from Magdalene Development Group and looked over by Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill, this is the result of what you see. Or north of the river and west of the lake, they actually have very aquatic names, such as Shoreham, the Tides, Lancaster, that's a Game of Thrones reference, and it's also the name of the building. And there's also a building called the Aqua Building, which I'll mention later because it's very important. I love the architect of that building. And this building that you see right here, this very triangular looking building, because it is a triangle, that has the blue and the black tint kind of windows to it. This is called the Swiss Hotel. That's one word, Swiss Hotel, not Swiss Hotel. And it was made by Harry Weiss in 1989. Harry Weiss was born here in Evanston, Illinois, a north suburb near where I live. And the reason why he wanted this to be a triangle, one, he wanted to beat the 90-degree angles that are always built with buildings to have squares, and he loved triangles. And this building, which is interesting, you get 3 different views of Chicago. You get a view of the river, a view of the lake, and in the back you get a view of Grant Park. And behind this building is the building I mentioned, the tallest building here in Chicago, and the tallest building in the world designed by a woman. And what's currently the tallest building, the third tallest building in Chicago, is that green building with the vertical straight. And at one point it was completely covered in marble. It was the most building in the world, even clad in marble. However, because we had to take off all the marble, we feed it North Carolina grading salt. The building cost $170 million to make. It cost $83 million to maintain the entire building. But underneath this building over here on your starboard side, this is a very beautiful building. This is the Wrigley building, this white building, completed in 1921 and 24 by Graham Anderson, Probst and White. If you take a look at it, it's very fancy. And I like to think of it like a cake, because that's the kind of architecture this first school of architecture made. It was looked over by Daniel Burnham. And that's why I like to think of it like a cake. The first school of architecture. And this building, which I know everyone is starting to see over here on your starboard side, everyone can probably tell me what this building is, but I will say it for you. Trump International Hotel and Tower was completed in 2009 by Adrian Smith. Remember that name, because I'll mention it again for a very good reason. It is the second tallest building here in Chicago. It was supposed to be the tallest building here in Chicago. However, after the 9/11 attacks, we had to downgrade to the second tallest building here in Chicago. The sign actually is hated by most Chicago, so much that this is called the Riverwalk building, completed in 1914 by George C. Nimitz. On the right side of this building, if we're looking at the clock as the middle, there's 6 windows. To the left of it, there are only 5. That is because there was a 6th part of this building on the left side. However, because we had to make room for this street we're passing right now, LaSalle Street, we had to chop off the last 6 of that building. But if I did not tell you that, you would have saw it as any other building, which I think is very interesting. This is one of my favorite buildings over here. This one over here on your starboard side, this very glassy one, this is 300 North LaSalle. This is the greenest building we have here in Chicago. And when 2009, when Pickard Chilton decided to make this, we made it platinum certified green from a company called L, a very large one on your starboard side. This is the merchandise Mart. This is completed in 1929, also by Graham Anderson, Probst and White, financed by Marshall Fields. When it was completed, it was the largest building in Chicago, meaning how much land it took up. It was over 4 million square feet in land taken up. However, the Pentagon surpassed that record when they built their building, the Pentagon, which takes about 5 million square feet. This area that we're entering right now is very interesting because this is Wolf Point. This is where they say Chicago started. This will be also designed by Pickard Chilton, the same man who made 300 North LaSalle, and that is certified LEED Gold. Way to emulate and try to tell you about this style of architecture called cantilevering. A cantilevering, think of it like a muffin. There's the bottom part that you hold, and then there's the part that goes over it. So when this building is complete, those horizontal parts are actually going to be building. This is completed in 1990 by Perkins and Will, and the main architect of this was Ralph Johnson. What's interesting about it is the vertical part has a full foundation under it. All of these buildings have full foundations under it. They're called cams. But this one, this horizontal part, has half of it because there's the railroad underneath for the metro station, and they need to make room for that. And you do not want to mess up with that, with messing up with the train station, or else you have to go through a bunch of walls and blah, blah, blah. So, how they're able to hold it up, and I'll show you when we turn around, it is also held up from the top part, that horizontal. It was from the Chicago Daily News, and Art Deco, if you can see, is also known by its setbacks. So you can see, as the building gets higher and higher, it goes back and back. It gets thinner and thinner. A couple of reasons why that is the reason is because with city ordinances, as your building gets taller and taller, it needs to get smaller and smaller at the top. If it weren't that case, there would be huge shadow overcast over the streets, and no one would be able to see. What's very interesting about that building also, it was one of the first buildings to actually implement and create air rights. And that sounds like what it is. Air rights where you can own the air above you if you own the land below you. And one of the first places to actually use it is this railroad station that I mentioned earlier when I talked about the Boeing building. So if you see through these openings right here, this is called Union Station. And in there are Amtrak and Metro trains. That was completed in 1925. It was part of Daniel Burnham's 1909 plan of Chicago. However, he did not live long enough to see this made. But his students, Graham Anderson Probst White, did complete it in his honor. And it has helped many commuters come to Chicago today. What's very interesting about it, because it has the air rights, a lot of these buildings that are above the building are actually owned by the Union Station. Bridges. These bicycle bridges we'll be able to see again, but we have more movable bicycle bridges or movable bridges than any other city in the world. We have 37 in total. And how they're able to move, they're actually, when they come back together to make one horizontal line. And they're rusty, those bridges, because we do not want you to actually see the color, the rust that is on the bridge. And because you can't really tell how old these bridges are. What I know everyone's going to be waiting to see right now. We're going to be turning right now to be able to see this building. It is the tallest building we have in Chicago. Now, remember Adrian Smith, I mentioned him earlier, the designer of the Trump Tower, the second tallest building in Chicago. He actually built the tallest building in the world currently, which is a first April, which is called the first April. And that is 2,732 feet. You want to know how tall that is? Remember those black boxes that we saw? Right on the left street, and then there's on top of this black box, there's another tier tower right under that. That is how tall that is. It's another beautiful, forward, tower of the block. And now, if you want to look, hold up this horizontal part. Now, when Ralph Johnson made this part of the building, most Chicagoans thought it was very ugly, and they wondered why he wanted to have that show. But Ralph Johnson thought, oh, this is very beautiful. Why would I hide something? But then it did help.
Chicago Seadog Lady outbound Subject right step, I'm leaving here.
This actually has nothing inside it currently. But then it went out by tour, but when they came back, they moved to their companies that we're seeing right now here in Lakeshore. That burned down in 1951. Which was the old guys that were helping the job. And after some back tour deals, they helped build the As I said before, this is a master tour, and this is an urban high-end tour. There's a lot of cool things to do in Chicago. You want to do something physical. And this building right here, I like to mention, because it's very beautiful on your starboard side. It's a very art classy building. This is called 333 West Wacker. This style is called postmodernism.
You want to set up here? You want to get clear views of the front?
Yeah, I want to get some shots of you actually.
Yeah, definitely. I'll get out of the way.
Yeah, cool, dude. Thanks.
Up at Washington Boulevard.
Beautifully goes well with the Green River. It also reflects the buildings and the sky there in Chicago. Never fight with it. They want to go in whichever direction it's going. So they want to complement that style. Now, look at it. There was a Common Edison box that was built in 1985. And yet we built this building also right next to 25 West Wacker, right next to each other. And two, there were a lot of postmodern buildings being built, and you wanted to counteract that. So that's the completion of that more traditional style building. And when he built this, the first building, which I think is interesting, you were skeptical because it was from New York and not Chicago. But most people trusted him after another building that is very interesting is this building over here, starboard side, this rectangular building. This is called the Builders Building. The first part of it was completed in 1947 by Graham Anderson Probst White, the head architecture company here in Chicago. Those head 4 guys. But then another head company, Skidmore, Owings & Merrill, which I mentioned earlier, they actually helped finish it in 1986. 1976. And they added the glassy part that was up at the top. And it's had all the buildings where they could put their stuff in there. And it's be very similar. I love talking about this part of the tour because it's a beautiful day to talk about it, and it's a perfect thing to do, especially if you want to walk around Chicago. Over here on your starboard side, you're seeing some people hang out over here. Perfect thing to do, specifically, bless you, by the way. This area right here, it's called the Chicago Riverwalk. This goes on and on and on as we keep going towards the lake. What you do, literally, is walk. We're going to talk about also is Chicago. This black building right here with the silver windows. That you see are actually an ode to Chicago windows. And as we pass this bridge, you'll be able to see again that they actually help bring out the exterior of the building. Because if you were at night and you just had the black building itself, it would be very difficult to see it if you didn't shine a light on it. I think this bridge, I like to warn everyone, it's also a lot of myths behind it. Past this bridge, you'll be seeing a green building over here on the starboard side with gold on top of it. And that is real gold. Gold. This is called the Carbide Harbor Bridge. It was completed in 1929 by Burnham. He's the son of Burnham, which I mentioned earlier. Zip that is 24 meters long, and you recommend going try it. Like that. Admire what it is. You don't need to pick it off. It's very thin, so it's very hard to have any more than 2 miles. Some people say there's a reason why. It made it look like a champagne bottle. It goes to the green, the green is added on the top. They say they made it look like a champagne bottle because when they completed it, it was around the Prohibition era where you could not drink. Not because they actually made that building into a building that they loved in Chicago, New York City, which was a much wider building. It also had around 260 submissions. Different documentation saying different numbers, but the general area of 260 submissions, as you'll see again once we pass the bridge, that is the winner. It's very interesting that the 201 is going through a lot of European submissions as well. What I love about the submissions from Europe being completed, and meaning that they actually helped reverse the flow of the river and have a much cleaner water system. What's interesting about it is on every hour on the hour for 5 minutes. The reason why is they wanted to symbolize the river and the city finally coming together as one, working together. Ironically, it never makes it over to the other side of the river, but it mentioned because of what it used to hold. This is at one point, the tallest, widest, and heaviest bridge in the world. This is the Franklin D. Roosevelt Memorial Bridge, also known as the Lakeshore Drive Bridge. Bridge, that's the center part of where the opening of the bridge would be to open up and close back down. About 112 cars pass this bridge during the day, so it makes it one of the busiest bridges here we have in Chicago. And also one of the fastest opening bridges as well, very ironically. A couple more things I'll mention. I like to mention this one because of what it could have been. So if you look over here where this white board fence you see over here on your port side, in this area there's a huge circular foundation, and that was supposed to hold the Chicago spire that could have been built by Pickard Chilton as well, and that was supposed to be completed in 2010. However, because of financial setbacks in the ground, sitting there waiting for something to happen, and I hope it does happen because the beauty of what the building could look like is amazing. Imagine if anyone has a screwdriver and they know how it arcs and swivels up. That's the look of what that building could look like, the Chicago spire. And when this is completed in 1916 when it opened, and it actually had none of these buildings on it. It was actually supposed to be holding.